everybody. Today's video is actually a request from a watcher. I won't call them out by name because I don't know if they would want me to do that. But about a month ago, it was requested that I do a video on semisextiles, on the semisextile aspect. And I got to think about it. I was like, damn, I haven't done any videos on the minor aspects, except for the quincunx, but I don't consider the quincunx to be a minor aspect, as I've mentioned before. But I haven't done any videos, I don't think, on any of the other ones. So this was a good idea. So thanks for throwing the idea out there. Sorry it took me like a month to do it. It was busy fucking November, like busy as fuck. Really busy. But before I get started on the video, there are a couple of things I want to mention. Housekeeping sort of things. The first of which is at the beginning of January 2024, the name of the channel will be changing from Let's F with Astrology to probably Saturn Season Astrology, since Saturn Season Astrology is my personal business, my personal astrology practice. It probably will change to that. I will let you all know if I decide to change it to something else, but I kind of don't think I will. I kind of think it'll be Saturn Season Astrology. I know some of y'all really like the name of the channel. I would appreciate not being asked why it's changing. I don't really want to go into it. But it will change to probably Saturn Season Astrology in early January of 2024. I'll also make a community post about this, so that way it's also in text. That way when it changes, y'all aren't like, where the fuck did the channel go? Yeah, so be looking out for that. In January 2024, it changing to Saturn Season Astrology. Okay, so there's that. And also the other thing I wanted to mention is I get comments, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate comments and engagement, and I love engaging with y'all, talking to y'all. I love it, I really do. But I will get comments sometimes with people asking me questions about their own chart. Something specific within their chart. And it's not random, it's like about the video. It has to do with the video that they're commenting on for the most part. But if you all want me to answer things in a personal way or make it personal, I really do need to see your chart. I do readings. I have said this, I usually say this at the end of videos. I should start saying it at the beginning. But I do astrology readings, all kinds of astrology readings through my practice, Saturn Season Astrology. I will put the link below where you can get a reading if you would like one. Because really, like, if you ask me something about your chart in a comment, I haven't, like 99% of the time, I haven't seen the chart. So what you're going to get is a more generalized answer from me, because you have to take the whole fucking thing into account. It's not this one thing. You've got to take the whole fucking thing into account. So if you ask me about some placement that you have, I'm going to give you a more generalized answer. It's not personalized. If you're okay with that, by all means, like, I'm cool with it too. Like, I don't mind giving you generalized answers on on comments on you. I do not mind it. But if you're looking for something more personalized, book a reading. And again, you'll be able to do that at the link below. I'll be able to help you in a more personalized way that way, I guess. But don't let that dissuade you from leaving comments about whatever or whatever. Don't let me dissuade you here from doing that. Anyway, okay, so the semisextile aspect. This is a minor aspect. It is a 30-degree aspect. So an example of this would be like the moon in Scorpio at 15 degrees, and then the sun in Sagittarius at 16 degrees. That's a semisextile. Now, for this aspect, really depends on who you talk to. Some people feel like you can only go out 1 or 2 degrees, 1 or 2 degree orb for this aspect. I will go out to 3 when I bring it into play. I don't think that's wrong. I feel like, especially if you're talking, I mean, it does depend on the chart. I think 3 degrees is far enough. I don't think, personally, I wouldn't go up further than 3. But if you feel differently about that, by all means, you do you. But I do think that, like, if you're talking about like the sun, the moon, the chart ruler, involved in a semi-sextile. I do think you could go out to 3 for sure. They'll usually do that anyway. And you know that, but when people don't want to go out that far, I mean, that's not wrong, because the tighter an aspect is in the chart, whether that's a major aspect or a minor aspect, the tighter it is, the more influence it's going to have in one's life generally. Generally speaking, that is the case. And with the minor aspects, since they don't pack the same punch or have the same force as major aspects, the tighter they are, the more they do stand out. And the more influence they have, because the influence with minor aspects is minor. It's more minor. And usually, oftentimes, I won't say usually, but oftentimes, when you see planets, a minor aspect like the semisextile, what you see from it can also be reinforced by some kind of major aspect or something like that. So it's really like that minor aspect is kind of reinforcing something else in the chart. But it's good to have that, to find that sort of reinforcement. That's a good thing. So they are planets that are 30 degrees of, 30 degrees from one another. You can also have semisextile. So generally, let me back up. Generally speaking, semisextiles are going to be they're going to be planets in neighboring signs. Like in the case of the moon at 15 degrees Scorpio, sun at 16 degrees Sagittarius. These are neighboring signs on the wheel. Now, you can actually have semisextiles that are in the same sign. Let's say you had your moon at 0 degrees Sagittarius, your sun at 29 degrees Sagittarius. That's about 30 degrees. This is a semisextile. Now, because the planets here are in the same sign, in this particular example, I don't think of them quite in the same way. I think it makes it a little easier. Because they're in the same sign. because the thing here with the semisextile is the signs, when you've got them in different signs, right? Like moon at 15 degrees Scorpio, sun at 16 degrees Sagittarius. Scorpio and Sagittarius, they don't have a lot in common. Like there's not a lot of common ground, right? So there can be this sense of, with the semisextile, kind of like with the quincunx, where the planets in the signs don't really see or feel or understand one another and where one another are coming from. Now, the difference between the quincunx and the semisextile is the semisextile is half of a sextile. Sextile aspect is 60 degrees. It's a harmonious aspect. It is consciously creative. This aspect does not get lazy like the trines. Trines can get fucking lazy. The sextile usually does not. And so there's this harmonious aspect that the semisextile is half of. So I feel like here, whereas with like the quincunx, when there's not that seeing or feeling between the planets involved, there's an awkwardness and adjustment that needs to be made. The quincunx is 150 degrees, which is half of 300. 300 is not a major aspect. There's no major aspect that's 300. So I feel like the way that the quincunx functions, how it kind of functions in a similar way, I think the quincunx is harder. I think it's harder than the semisextile is, for sure. Because I'll use this as an example. Okay, so think about the natal chart as like a neighborhood. Pretend like it's a neighborhood. In the case of Scorpio and Sagittarius, these planets are neighbors. The planets in these signs are neighbors. Whereas with the quincunx, they're not neighbors. They're kind of, be like across the street, but over there. So you don't really maybe see the house as easily, whatever. Y'all don't see one another's houses as easily as you do with the semisextile aspect. And when you have a neighbor, there is this kind of, you may not understand your neighbor. You may not be like best friends with your neighbor. and it doesn't really matter. Y'all are just neighbors, but there is a common interest in kind of getting on because you're neighbors. And because who wants to have fucking shit with their neighbors, or, you know, difficult shit with their neighbors? Doesn't mean you can't have difficult shit with your neighbors, but there is this you want to kind of get on with your neighbor because they're your fucking neighbor. Even if you're not really friends or don't really understand them. And that's kind of how I think of the semisextile. Even though these planets in these signs don't necessarily get on with one another or understand one another, they do things very differently. There is a common sort of harmony, even if it's not totally conscious. There is a common harmony here of wanting to get on or work together because you're neighbors. That does not exist with the quincunx. So that's kind of the way that I think of them. Does that mean that they always, does that mean that they always get on? No. And adjustments do have to be made because there is kind of a not seeing or feeling or understanding with this aspect, but there is tension because of that, because these planets and these signs do things differently. There is a latent harmony as well because they're neighbors and because they kind of need to get on well together. And this is why I think it's easier, right? when you have a semisextile aspect where you've got like one planet at 0 degrees, another planet at 29 degrees, but they are in the same sign. So I feel like there is more harmony there, than like an undertone of not understanding, if that makes sense. So I was thinking about this and you know, because I like to give y'all examples, whether it's just some example that I make up or something else. I have one of these in my own chart. I have Mars at 0 degrees Scorpio, and it is semisextile my sun in Sagittarius at 1 degree. Now also bring the houses into play here. Mars and Scorpio in the 11th house. And my sun in Sagittarius in the 12th. And I can see now, mind you, this also comes into play in other ways in my chart, but this reinforces those other ways. It just kind of backs them up. But I was thinking about this, you know, Mars can be a whole bunch of different things, but we'll go with anger and fighting here. And you know, the 11th house, you know, that's some of the stuff that Mars wants to express. Anger, fighting, wants to express a lot more than that, but we'll roll with that. In the 11th house is like groups of people. This could be social causes, humanitarian causes, friends. We'll roll with that. And then, you know, Scorpio energy is intense. It is passionate. It is deep. I'll go with that. So, you know, I know this about myself. I have an easier time fighting for other people, for what that could be friends, that could be social causes, humanitarian, whatever. I have an easier time fighting for other people than I do for fighting for myself. This is a problem for me. This has been a problem my whole life. But it is a thing that I do. I have a much easier time fighting for other people than I do for myself. And I know that sun in Sagittarius in the 12th house, you know, that we're talking about a 12th house sun. Like I'm already, 12th house suns, there generally is a, you know, 12th house is where ego doesn't live there. Self can be a hard thing there anyway. So sometimes I think I don't know to fight for myself. Especially in the past, there have been times that I maybe didn't know to fight for myself, or didn't know how. Same thing with anger. You know, I can get really fucking pissed about something that happens to a group of people. I can get really pissed at things that happen to friends. But when it comes to things that happen to me, I don't tend to get quite as pissed. And I tend to just take it. Not a good thing. I know this, not a good thing. You know, but I think about this. And like I said, there are other things in my chart that kind of back this up. But when I think about it in terms of the semisextile, when I think about getting really pissed or angry about things that happen to, say, friends, or things that happen to groups of people, and fighting for that, fighting for those people, those groups, it actually might be a way of me fighting for myself too. It really might be. It might be a way for me to do that. Same thing with getting pissed about, you know, it just might, the fighting, the anger that comes out towards, you know, wanting to fight for other people, getting pissed off for other people. It probably does serve to help me with fighting for myself, getting pissed off for myself. Like, there is harmony there. There is tension, because I realize that can be an issue, especially when I feel like when it matters and I should fight for myself, I don't. That's not good. But there is a harmony. There is a harmony there, I think, because it does kind of work out that way, whereby fighting for other people, groups of people, getting angry for groups of people, getting angry for friends. If I think about it, it does, in some way, it'll be something that has happened to me, and it's a way for me to do that, to feel like I'm fighting for myself, or getting pissed off for things that have happened to me. But perhaps a more productive way of, the way that I think about it, a more productive way of handling it than just me getting pissed or fighting. Yeah. I think that's pretty, good. Let me know if you have any semisextiles in your chart, how you think they play out. And there are other ways that people feel like these can go, but this is obviously my opinion on it through just my opinion and through practice. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any yourself. If you have any requests for anything, by all means, let me know. I love getting requests for videos. I'm happy to do what y'all want. Again, I'm sorry it took me so long to do this one. But yeah, I will see you all later.